I'm Sam.
And this is Gabe.
And this is Coaster Wars.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Coaster Wars podcast. For today, we are going to be talking about one of the most well-known, one of the most accoladed, one of the most record-holding roller coaster manufacturers in the world, Intamin amusement rides.
Oh yeah, if you've been to a theme park, most theme parks out there, especially the major ones out there, like a Six Flags park or something, will have at least one Intamin in their park. And they, as Gabe said, they're a major record holder in the roller coaster world too. So even if you know just a little bit about roller coasters, you probably at least heard that name somewhere along the way. So we're here with this Coasters 101 episode to really give you the ins and outs of this company.
I wonder if they have that on their website. I'm going to look quick. Records and awards. Here we go.
Oh, there you go.
So they hold 19 world records. They hold 39 golden ticket awards. They hold 24 IAPA Best New Product awards. And they hold 27 European Star Awards. Let's see what their world records are. Let's see what they got for world records. So they had, obviously, before King Dakar was torn down, they held the world's tallest roller coaster. That's very true. Let's see. The 10 fastest coasters worldwide. Oh, that's right. They hold the world record for the fastest roller coaster in the world.
Yep.
And that was Formula Rossa. Although, I don't know if that's
I don't think it's operating. Yeah. I think it's SBNO on RCDB. So for those who don't know, SBNO is short for standing but not operating. So you can see the coaster, but it doesn't run.
They have the number 2 tallest wooden roller coaster in the world, but they have the number 1 highest drop on a wooden roller coaster in the world.
Oh, what coaster is that? Do you know?
So it says T-Express in Everland, South Korea has the tallest drop, but El Toro is actually technically taller, but it's not the tallest wooden roller coaster.
Yeah.
It's the second tallest. I think that's actually, I believe the tallest wooden roller coaster is actually Goliath.
Oh.
Six Flags Great America. I don't know if that's true or not, but I believe so. I believe that's
it probably 1. Is. The thing is freaking tall. It's almost a hyper.
This is kind of interesting. They hold technically the first tallest coaster, the second tallest coaster, the third tallest coaster, and the fourth tallest coaster. And that would be, that would be King Dakar, which, well, technically speaking.
Yes.
But anyway, King Dakar, Top Thrill Dragster, Superman Escape from Krypton, and Red Force at Ferrari Land.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. I feel like we got a little off track here.
No, it's all right. So, as you can see, Intamin is a record breaker. They're an innovator. And me, Gabe, kind of like to say they're the yes man of the roller coaster world. But why don't I'll go over a little bit briefly here, the kind of history of this company. So they were established in 1967, and the Intamin is actually sort of an abbreviation of what their name is. It's actually International Amusement Installations. And if you take the first couple letters out of each of those words, you get Intamin, which is Intamin. I will say, when I was first getting to roller coasters and Gabe would talk about this company, I thought he was saying intimate, like Intimate. And I was like, that's a weird name for a roller coaster company, but whatever. But anyways, they were started by 3 men that had their office in their apartment in Bern, which is the capital of Switzerland. So this is a Swiss-based roller coaster company. It was Robert and Reinhold Spieldiner, I think, who were brothers, and then their friend Alphonse Psycho, who went by Ali. And in the beginning, they were mostly just an amusement rides company. They weren't quite yet known for roller coasters, but they were still record setters even in their early days. In 1979, they built a 600-foot tall observation deck ride. It was at a park in Argentina. Unfortunately, the park is closed down and the ride is tore down, but I thought that thing must have been crazy just to see. You could have probably seen it from anywhere in the country, honestly.
Yeah, probably.
Yes. So, and another big part of Intimate's history that I always forget about is they were the producer of the Roaring Rapids rides.
Yes, I was hoping you were gonna bring that up. So the
Yes.
really cool thing, or kind of weird nerdy thing, I guess, about Intimate amusement rides is that their first big break was not a roller coaster at all. In
No.
fact, their first big break was the Rapids rides down at the Six Flags. I think it's not even an open park anymore. It's
No, it's
the
Six Flags
it's Astroworld.
Astroworld.
Yeah,
Yep.
Astroworld. They built the first rapid rides there, and then all of a sudden, all the other Six Flags parks were like, "Wait a minute, this is actually a really, really cool ride. We want it," and they
Yes.
just blew up. And that was like the first ride that really put them on the map as a manufacturer for amusement rides. And it
Mhm.
wasn't even a roller coaster; it was
Yep.
a rapids ride.
Yep. So that one was built at Six Flags Astroworld, and then literally the next year, 2 additional Six Flags parks also built Rabbids rides. And then now today, although they are not all built by Intimate, there are over 175 different River Rapids rides, and a lot of them are built by Intimate. So once we get a little bit further, we head into also in 1979 was technically speaking Intimate's first roller coaster, but this was
Junior
at the
Gemini.
yes, it is now called Wilderness Run. It's at Cedar Point, and it was just a little steel kiddie coaster. It looks kind of adorable. But we then hit into 1980. Now, this is something I didn't know. So, Robert Spieldiner created his own company as like a subset of Intimate that specialized in simulators. And so they partnered with a California film projection system supplier, and they were at the forefront of simulation rides. And now, so they built a couple different ones of these, but the ones that I specifically have written, and so has Gabe, was the Simpsons ride down at Universal. And even before that, the Back to the Future ride was also an Intimate ride, and then it
Oh
was tore down
yeah.
and replaced by the Simpsons, and that was Intimate,
You
which
just
I
pulled a memory out of my memory file I didn't even know I had.
yeah, it's like one of those 4D ride experiences. It was basically like a four-person cart that was like lifted up on a mechanical arm, and you were put in front of this giant projector screen with 3D glasses, so it really felt like you were on a coaster, even though it technically wasn't a roller coaster. And then, of course, it was Simpson themed, and we personally love The Simpsons. So once we once we get past that, though, we head into 1981, and this was their first attempt at a large roller coaster. We have American Eagle at Six Flags Great America. Now, me and Gabe talk endlessly about this ride. It's one of our favorite Woodies. It's also at our home park. It's one of the last standing wooden giants. And I always freaking forget that this was an Intimate roller coaster.
Here's a little interesting tidbit that I found. They've actually built 7 traditional wooden roller coasters over the years. I did not
Holy
know that.
cow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So American Eagle is obviously the first,
Yes.
but they have built 6 others over their time period as a roller coaster manufacturer. And the time periods range from 1981, which is when American Eagle was built, all the way, and the newest one would be 2001. And you
Huh.
want to know what it's called? It's called
What?
Elf.
Of course it is.
I just thought that was a little interesting thing.
Oh,
But
yeah.
yeah, so they've actually built 7 traditional wooden roller coasters. Now, the reason I say traditional is because they built 4 other wooden roller coasters, which we'll
Yep.
touch on later in this podcast. But
Yes.
yeah, just a little fun fact there. They've actually built 7 different wooden roller coasters.
And then, like we were saying, Intimate is the record setter, and they've been a record setter since day one because, of course, when they built American Eagle at the time when it was built, it was, of course, the tallest and fastest Woody on the planet. So in 1982, we move into Intimate actually introduced the first of what were called the free fall rides. Now, these are very similar to drop towers, but they're sort of the predecessor to drop towers. And basically, if you've ever ridden a drop tower, a lot of the time you're pulled straight up and you go straight down, and then you kind of land on like some kind of air brake system or something. You have some kind of braking system that slows you down as you get to the bottom. What these free fall rides did is they basically had like a running track at the end. So you would fall and then it would kind of curve a little bit to like curb those G forces, and you would actually run out on these track to like lose your speed so
They
you
were
could come to a
technically
stop.
considered roller coasters, I believe.
Oh, really?
I know they
Okay.
call I know they called them free fall rides, but because of the because it was a free fall. Like once you
Yeah.
got released, it was a free fall. But then once you hit the track, you kind of like ran out on like an
Yeah.
actual roller coaster track. So I believe technically they were considered roller coasters. It's kind of like a weird gray
Yeah.
area
Yeah,
thing.
exactly. So they were super popular and they basically kind of needed to be updated due to the popularity, the ride life of these rides. They were super long lasting, but they also had super high maintenance costs. So that led them to develop the modern day drop towers. And so after this, we kind of just like have a bunch of records breaking as Intimate creates not only more amusement rides, but also more roller coasters. So I'm going to kind of do my quickest rundown of this. So in 1994, they had the largest traveling inverted roller coaster. It had to be transported by 90. That is 90 trucks. And they also had the record breaking roller coaster with 10 inversions. And I think it was called, like, this was on Intimate's website, so they just said they had a roller coaster with 10 inversions. Of course, they didn't tell me what it was. So I think it's Colossus at Thorpe Park in England in
That sounds right.
1995. Yeah. Okay, good. So in 1995, they came out with the first giant drop. In
Yeah,
1997,
so
go
just
ahead.
a little side note there. The reason why that one is such a significant thing in the roller coaster industry is because that was the first use of a magnetic fin braking system on a ride. So
Oh,
that's why that one is so significant because
okay.
all traditional braking systems before this, whether it was a roller coaster or a flat ride or whatever, were like friction brakes, some kind of
Oh,
friction
yep.
pad, some
Yep.
kind of grab, something that reaches up, grabs the train, or
Yep.
some kind of like, or skid brakes if you really want to go way, way back. But
Yep.
basically, there was some kind of friction involved in slowing the train down, where the magnetic fin braking system is a wireless maintenance free braking system. Basically, obviously, if you're using friction, just like on your car, you have to replace your brake pads every so often. Same thing with these roller coasters. Now, because there's no actual contact between the braking system, it's just using magnetics to slow you down. There's no
Hmm.
friction, there's no
Yep.
contact. You don't have to replace anything. As long as the magnets are working and have power, you're good to go.
Yeah.
So that's why that one is so significant and why they have it on their website is because the first giant drop tower was the first tower to use magnetic fin braking systems.
Okay. That makes sense. Thank you. Thank you, roller coaster exert.
Yes.
So then we then moved to 1997, and this is quite the milestone in just one roller coaster because it was the first coaster to break 100 miles per hour. It was the first coaster to sport LSMs, and it was also the first coaster to break 400 feet, making it the first strata. This is Superman the Escape at Six Flags
No,
Magic Mountain.
it's not.
No? Is not?
Nope.
Okay.
So the reason they never considered it the Reverse Strata coaster, because that's technically held by Top Thrill,
See,
is
that's what
because
I
it was a
thought.
not a full circuit roller coaster. That was the little caveat Cedar Point made
Oh.
in order to hold that record.
Of course.
Yes, it
That
was the
sounds like a
first
Cedar Point
coaster to
thing.
break 400 feet. However, the actual train and the passengers never reached that mark. So therefore,
Okay.
yes. So it's a little niche. It was the first coaster to break 100 miles an hour. It was the first
Yep.
coaster to use LSMs.
LSMs.
Yes, it technically stood over 400 feet
400
tall,
feet.
but because Cedar Point has to be Cedar Point, they said no, the train doesn't actually get to 400 feet. The riders don't get to 400 feet. It don't count. So
Okay. Thank you. So this is not the first strata. See, I was so confused because Intimate does not put it on their website, but it was when I was looking up to figure out what this 100-mile-an-hour LSM's coaster was, I was like, wait, this says it was over 400 feet. So this is the first strata, not Top Thrill. This other website I was looking at must be wrong. So yeah, no, okay. So take that out. But it is the first to
yes.
reach over 100 miles per hour, and it was the first to sport the LSMs, which were the predecessors to what are today's LIMs or even the hydraulic launch. But we'll get to that in a second. So in 2000, just as a like small side note, they had the tallest Ferris wheel, which is in Japan, but also in 2000 was the first Giga Coaster, which we have in Millennium Force, a favorite of mine and Gabe's, and of course it's at Cedar Point because it's Cedar Point. So in 2003, we then have the introduction of hydraulic launch technology. So the first one ever built was Accelerator at Knott's Berry Farm. It was 82 miles per hour in 2.3 seconds. But then we also had Top Thrill that year, which, like Gabe just said, was the first Stratocoaster at over 400 feet. Top height was 420 feet, and that was a launch of 125 or 120 miles per hour. But then we head into 2005, which is the tallest and fastest with King Ka. That was 456 feet, and that was 128 miles per hour. In 2010, you then have the fastest coaster, which was Formula Rossa at Ferrari World. That was 149.1 miles per hour. We then head into some of their newer ones. At 2016, there is a coaster at Terran in Phantasialand, which is in Germany, and it currently holds 4 records. I think currently it holds these records. So it is the longest multi-launch coaster. You have to put that little note in there. It's a multi-launch coaster. It is the fastest multi-launch coaster. It is the fastest catapult drive coaster, but it also holds the record for most track crosses, which I thought was really funny because I'm like, what? Who is going around just counting how many times the track crosses its
Intamin.
show? Yeah.
Intamin is going around counting how many times the track crosses itself. That is 100% an Intamin thing to do.
I just thought it was so funny. But this ride holds a record of 116 different track crosses, which is just a baffling number to me. I'm like, how do they even have enough track to make it cross that many times? But then in 2019, they have a ride called Dueling Dragons in China. So this is a dueling LSM launch coaster that features an inverted track and a sit-down track. Now, I didn't do much research on this roller coaster, but I did see a really cool picture where the tracks are basically stacked directly on top of each other. And because one is inverted and one is a technically sit-down, they have the inverted track on top, and you see the inverted train upside down going over this. And then, of course, the sit-down one is on the inside. And since you sit on the track, it rides on that track. It was a very cool picture. I imagine this is a very fun dueling coaster.
This is a coaster that has been on my list. Now, obviously, it's not a very accessible coaster for us at the moment in time. But this is definitely a coaster on my list that I would like to go ride at some point. Like you said, I'm looking at the same picture that you were talking about. I'm like, that is so cool. That is so cool. But yes, that is definitely on our list of coasters we need to ride.
Absolutely. So that is a brief overview of basically the history and the different records that this company holds. And it is just a mind-boggling list. And then, like, to add to this, I was looking through my top 15, and in my top 15, I currently have 4 different Intamins, one of which sits at my number 3 spot in my list. So Intamin is just a huge company. They've done so many incredible things, so many record-breaking things. They're constantly innovating and trying to do new things, and it's very much a testament to the kind of roller coaster company that they are.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, their tagline on their website when you look in is the innovation factory. So like they pride themselves in innovating the roller coaster world, being at the forefront of technology related to roller coasters and just developing new types of rides. And they're just I think you said it best. They're the yes man of the roller coaster manufacturer. You want a 300-foot tall coaster? Yeah, sure, Cedar Point, we'll build you Millennium Force. You want 95-foot tall roller coaster that has 2 LSM launches? Yeah, sure, we'll build you Maverick. Like, you know what I mean? Like, oh, hey, we want a 170-foot tall water roller coaster that has the forces of a steel coaster. Yeah, sure, we'll build you El Toro. That's fine. You know what I mean? Like, that's just kind of how they went about their business. Now, that does lead to issues. So this is something I talked about. It was funny. I watched my YouTube video that I made like 2 years ago about Intamin, and just to like kind of like refresh on everything I wanted to talk about. Obviously, Intamin being the innovator that they are, there's going to be a lot of issues that come along with that. Sometimes when you push the envelope, you go a little too far. The Heartline roll on Maverick is a great example of that because they put the Heartline roll in, they tested the coaster, they said the forces were too extreme for the train at the time, it was too extreme for the passengers. So unfortunately, they actually had to take that section of track out, replace it with an S-bend. And Cedar Point was very upset because that delayed the opening of their brand new roller coaster by a couple weeks. Other good examples are obviously the issues that El Toro has seen over the years. The Six Flags New England. Sam has ridden that coaster, the Superman roller coaster.
Yep.
You've ridden that.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, that coaster had issues with restraints. They had a couple gentlemen fall out of the train and injure themselves. However, so the little caveat is, yes, Intamin has done some things manufacturing-wise. However, sometimes these accidents are park-related. I'd say the El Toro incidents are definitely park-related versus the Intamin manufacturing side. But this kind of pushed him out of the country for a little bit. So you had the El Toro incidents, you had the Superman incidents, then you have rides like King Ka and Top Thrill that are very unreliable. Then you had the issues with Maverick. And a lot of the amusement parks here in the U.S. decided they didn't really want to deal with Intamin for a little while. So there was a time period in the middle 2000s, I want to say from 2009 to about 2018-ish, somewhere in there, where they weren't building roller coasters here in the U.S. And that's where you really saw Intamin kind of rebrand and rebuild themselves up. Terran is a good example of this. Everything that I have been told about it is an incredibly themed, incredibly fun, well done roller coaster with multiple launches. Then you have coasters like Hyperion at Energy Landia, a hyper roller coaster with an inversion. That's so cool. And you just have some of the newer stuff they're doing over there with multi-launch roller coasters and stuff. And it's slowly working its way back here into the US. You see Pantheon at Busch Gardens Williamsburg. You have Velocicoaster down at Universal Orlando. So they're slowly working their way back into the US. But we don't see a lot of what Intamin does nowadays. They do a lot of stuff in Europe. They've always done a lot of stuff in Europe, being based out of Switzerland. But right now, that's where they're doing a lot of their best work. So unfortunately, we have old Intamin. We don't have a lot of new Intamin.
Okay. That I was going to say that
moment in time.
Yeah. I was going to say that makes a lot of sense because a lot of the Intimates that me have talked about in the life of our podcast are built in the 90s all the way up until like he said about the mid 2000s. I mean, Maverick was built in 2007. We haven't had too many and like we said before, King Ka was 2005, Top Thrill is 2003. So there isn't too many that were newer ones that we've been able to ride. So even El Toro, when was El Toro built?
El Toro, I believe, is 2006.
Oh, okay, yeah. So right around that time.
So right around that time period. Yeah, no, there was a point where they were not allowed, nobody wanted to work with them.
Yeah.
Because there was so many issues. And some of that, I think, like I said, some of it's Intamin overpromising, I think. Some of that is the parks not maintaining their roller coasters or having poor operation practices or stuff like that. Safety checks, failed safety checks. That's on the amusement park. That's not on Intamin. You know what I mean?
Oh, yeah.
So I just think it was a combination of things. And like I said, nobody really wanted to work with them. Or it's kind of like Vekoma, too, where you saw a lot of Vekomas in the 90s and then all of a sudden they were just kind of gone. They kind of went over to Europe, rebranded themselves, and now they're slowly working their way back into the U.S. Obviously, B&M is the big one here in America because they've done a lot of good work here in America, and they continue to be consistent in what they do. Like I said, this when Intamin prides themselves in roller coaster innovation, so sometimes you're gonna have to rip a few band-aids off. That's just a fact of life.
Yes.
So that being said, as a roller coaster enthusiast, we love Intamins.
Yes. Yes, we do. Oh my gosh, because we're always looking for something new, and although me and Gabe do have some B&Ms that we really love, a lot of them are older B&Ms. We talk about when B&M was building their brand still, and they were a little bit more experimental, and they were a little less cookie cutter. And nowadays, although they have been coming out with a lot of cool stuff for a while there, B&M was kind of the major GP pleaser. They built roller coasters that were super reliable, that a lot of people loved in general, and they were also line eaters. They were capacity machines. They could eat through lines like nobody's business. If you went in line for something like a B&M Hyper, you were through that line so fast, even if it looked really long. So B&M and Intimate are kind of almost like two opposites. So B&M is your reliable, is your almost quote, I don't want to call it safe, but quote unquote safe roller coaster company. You're going to get something good that a lot of people love that'll last you quite a few
You
years.
you know what you're getting with the B&M. Like
Yes.
if you purchase a B&M roller coaster and you know, this is the ride model I want, this is the height I want, this is the speed I want, you
Mhm.
know, like you know what you're getting. You're not going to get a issue or problem, or like you're
Yes.
going to get a roller coaster, it's going to work, it's going to be a crowd pleaser like you said, and
Mhm.
it's going to be a good addition to your park.
Yes.
Where like an Intamin, they're a little bit of like, I don't know if this is gonna work. Like, no,
Yup.
Intamin nowadays has become a lot more reliable. I think,
Okay. Yes.
um, it's Intamin of the past where they were just kind of, I feel like they were just kind of, like I said, the yes man and
Mhm.
maybe building and trying stuff too quickly.
Yes.
But in the last like 10 years or so, Intamin has really become a lot more reliable. Like I said, Pantheon and Velocicoaster are two really good examples of a reliable people pleaser. Intamin,
Oh yeah.
and obviously they still are able to please the enthusiast side of things because enthusiasts love those two coasters as well. So
Yes.
I feel like they've really stepped up their game in the last 10 years or so and have been building some really cool coasters.
Yeah. On the flip side of that though, even though they weren't the most reliable, they a lot of the times because they did say yes to everything, they created a lot of really just funky little coasters. I think it's Storm Chaser at Hersheypark that is this little launch coaster. It's got a little top hat. It's like 90 or 80 feet tall or something. And it's got a couple just wonky inversions that you're like, well, that was kind of weird. That was really interesting. And then at the same time, a launch coaster, even if it doesn't have the craziest, most intense launch on the planet, a launch coaster is always almost fun because you're just accelerated at such a fast pace. So, and they're usually a little bit of a spectacle for the parks too when you have a launch coaster because with Storm Chaser, you have the launch coast or the launch track situated right next to a walking path. So a lot of people will sit there just to watch the coaster launch because it's cool. So even in the early days, when they weren't necessarily the most reliable and they did have problem coasters, they still were a lot of fun. And then of course they were still record breakers. I mean, a lot of people, even the GP, would line up to ride King to Cobb because it was the tallest coaster on the planet. I mean, come on, how would you not go and ride that? So
Yeah, is there any coasters you want to talk about specifically or
well, I think we have to talk about this first because we haven't really mentioned it in the history, but definitely Al Toro as one of the most well-known prefabricated roller coasters in like the world. So,
are you sure?
yes.
Okay.
How can we talk about Intimate and not talk about El Toro? Come on.
That's fair. I'll give you that one. So El Toro was constructed in 2006. I was correct on that.
Mhm.
It stands at 181 feet tall. It is a 176-foot tall drop, and it reaches a top speed of 70 miles per hour. Now, obviously, El Toro is known for its insane ejector airtime. That being said, this coaster's a lot more than that. We
Yeah,
always said that when we got off of it and rode it. How many times did we ride it? Like 10 times anyway.
literally.
Um, we always said like this is an all-around coaster. Like it has G-forces, it has airtime, it has floater airtime, it has like snappy transitions in the back
Mhm.
half. But obviously, at the end of the day, it's known for its insane ejector airtime moments. Now, so the reason El Toro is different from like an American Eagle or a traditional one roller coaster, as I said earlier in our episode, it is a prefabricated wooden roller coaster. So what that means is basically how they build roller coasters nowadays, especially the steel roller coasters, is they weld it all up in a shop. They haul it out to the job site wherever they're going to be building this roller coaster, and they put it together like Legos. Basically, you have a piece of track with a support. They put it together, and then they add another piece of track and another support. They put it together, and they assemble it just like a Lego structure. Wooden roller coasters are different. They have more of a traditional manufacturing practice where you haul the lumber out to the wood site and it is cut, measured, and bent into shapes at the job site. Now, this leads to more imperfections in the construction, obviously, because it's all done by hand, it's all done on site. So, what Intamin did with their prefabricated wooden roller coasters is they did the same thing they do with steel coasters. They assembled everything in a shop, hauled it out to the job site, and they assembled it like pieces of Legos. And what this did is this strengthened the track. So it made it a lot stiffer. It allowed you to add more forces to the roller coaster and make it a more extreme roller coaster than traditional woodies.
Yeah.
And that's why El Toro is well renowned as one of the best wooden roller coasters in the world because it's literally basically a steel coaster.
How many of these prefabs have they built?
They have built 4. Now, the reason they've only built 4, so
that's
they
what
built.
I was going to get into.
They built the first one in 2001, which would be Colossus at Hersheypark. And they built the last one in 2008, which would be T Express. T Express is another coaster that we need to get on. We definitely need to get on.
Where is that
one? It is 5,000. Yongin-sai, South Korea.
Okay, so it's in South Korea.
Yes, it's in South Korea. So the reason they stopped building a lot of these coasters is because no one wants to pay for them. Because, so like, I don't know if it has, does it tell us how much it costs? Sometimes it does.
Sometimes it does.
This one doesn't. Maybe El Toro does. No, it does not tell me. Anyway, these are very expensive roller coasters. You're getting a wooden roller coaster at the same price as a steel coaster, basically. That's one of the biggest issues with them is like a traditional wooden roller coaster costs, I don't know, maybe 9-10 million nowadays. I don't know with inflation and everything, but
right.
Where these Intamin prefabs cost closer to 25 million. So like it's a lot more expensive. You're paying the price of the manufacturing practices that they use. Also, like the lumber they use is more expensive because it's like marine grade lumber that they use.
Yep.
And some of the other things too is like they're supposed to be kind of maintenance free. That's kind of how they advertised them.
Yeah.
And very clearly El Toro is not maintenance free. So
hell no.
Yeah, that's the other issue with it is that they kind of promised more than what they could actually deliver. That being said, they are still really, really cool ride experiences. T Express is one of those coasters where I think if it was like here in the US or even over in Europe, it would be like a top 5 roller coaster on the planet.
Yeah.
But because it's in South Korea, not as many people have experienced it, unfortunately. But yeah, so that would be El Toro in a nutshell.
Okay. Thinking about other rides that we could talk about, I guess I'd like to talk about Sky Rush just a little bit. If you want a major overview of Sky Rush, we did it in episode 25 of our first season, non B&M Hypers.
We did?
But yeah. Because
I didn't even know we did one on Sky Rush.
I went to Hersheypark and I really wanted to talk about Sky Rush, and I was like, what kind of category can I create to include this? And so I was like, well, let's do non B&M Hypers, because that's what we talk about with Sky Rush. It's a 200-foot tall roller coaster that does not invert, so it's basically a hyper, but it's the intimate version of that. So like by no means is that at all a B&M experience. B&M Hypers are definitely airtime machines. They get great floater on them most of the time, where Sky Rush is all ejector. Again, the same thing with El Toro. So
yes,
we did a major
just a quick
interview. Yeah, go ahead.
Quick little thing. Skyrush opened in 2012. It is a top height of 200 feet and a top
Hmm.
speed of 75 miles per hour. And it is located in Hersheypark, Pennsylvania.
Yes. So when I went to go ride this, the another thing we have to point out is just either last year or the year before, they got new trains. That was one of the biggest complaints about Skyrush was the restraint system. Because, like I said, this was a major ejector airtime, so you were getting thrown into those restraints, and as such, the restraints kind of sat on your legs, and they had almost like a triangle shape, and the point of that triangle was directly in your legs. And so when you were getting thrown into those seats, you definitely would maybe end that trip with bruises on your legs, especially if you
The
rode that
thigh
coaster. Yeah.
crusher.
Yes.
That was always the biggest controversy on Skyrush.
Yes.
Sorry to interrupt you. Was
You're
that it
fine.
was a really, really, really good roller coaster with a lot of good ejector airtime, but it was very painful, uncomfortable, and a lot of people. It was a very diversive roller coaster because, like,
Yeah.
an enthusiast gets on it and goes, "Oh, this thing's awesome. I don't care
Yes.
that I can no longer feel my feet.
Yep.
This is awesome." Where
Hmm.
like a general public rider gets off of it and goes, I do care that I can't feel my feet. So
Yes.
it was a very divisive roller coaster. Some people loved it, a lot of people hated it.
Hmm.
However, hopefully with the new trains, it is new and improved. And guess what? We're going to ride it this summer, so we'll be able to
Exactly.
tell you.
Exactly. So, and I will be able to be tell you if it's better or not with those restraints because I've ridden it with the old ones. So, another thing with Skyrush is it also, we haven't really talked about this too much. Intamin is known for their cable lifts. And so Skyrush features the cable lift. So does Millennium Force have the cable lift. And Gabe can talk more on the benefits of that. Is it just because it's faster, or does it is it just a
So
new?
the cable lift is faster, especially for the taller roller coasters, coasters that are closer to 300 feet than they are to 200 feet. It's basically it hooks to the train, pulls you out of the station, and then it accelerates to a higher top
Okay.
speed. The other thing too is the cable lift is considered to be a stronger lifting device.
Oh, okay.
So the concern was that a chain lift could fail. Now, however,
Okay.
this has been proven wrong by B&M because obviously all of their Gigas feature
Yeah. Chain lifts.
chain lifts. But yeah, I believe that's what it was. It was just a little change of how they were gonna lift coasters up. Obviously, like when Millennium Force opened in 2000, that was a concern, was the lift motor and
Oh,
the chain
yeah.
failing. So that's probably why they went to a cable lift. That I believe Intamin trains are heavier.
Oh, okay. That makes sense.
I think that has something to do with it too, because like the Millennium, like the Fury 325 trains are very open air. Like you have like the deck, the seats, and the restraint, and that's it, right? It's the
Yeah.
clamshell restraint.
Yes.
Very, very open air trains, not a lot to them. Where like if you go to Millennium Force, it's a fully enclosed car with
Yep.
a T-bar restraint. So I bet you that probably has something to do with it too. Is that the Intamin trains might be a little heavier,
Yep.
and like I said, it was just a concern about the chain failing, basically.
The same thing with the Skyrush trains. They're not fully enclosed like Millenniums, but they offer a little bit different design than the just straight rows that you see on B&M Hypers. It's kind of like a wing effect. So the two middle seats
They actually
sit.
consider it's kind of interesting because they actually consider it a wing coaster,
Oh, okay. Yeah,
even though it's
because
not what you're
yeah,
thinking it is.
basically the two middle seats I think are a little bit forward and they are in the middle of the train, and then the two like outside seats kind of hang back a little bit and they're kind of like quote unquote over. So I don't know that there's anything under you on the. I'd have to look at the trains. Hold on.
The two interior seats, the track is under you. The two because it's four seats across.
Yeah.
The two outside seats, there's actually nothing below you
Yeah. And so
if you
and
look at the picture.
yeah. And they sit a little bit back, don't they? I think. I don't
I
know.
think so.
Yeah. So that's with Skyrush. Skyrush so Skyrush sits at number 12 on my top 15. It is an awesome roller coaster. I think everyone should try to get it. Not to mention that Hersheypark in and of itself is a beautiful park, and they have a ton of freaking roller coasters. Which it is so funny when I talk to people and I said I've been to Hersheypark, and they're like, "Oh my god, the place with the chocolate factory." I'm like, "Yeah, but I went for roller coasters, not for the chocolate." So Scott,
Yes.
yeah, and the funny thing is too is that they also have a B&M Hyper, and it's called Candemonium, and honestly, it's one of the worst B&M Hypers that I've ridden. So it's kind of funny to have like an awesome intimate hyper and then to have a worse B&M hyper at the same park. So, but yeah, it's cool cuz it's situated in basically the center of the park. It's kind of had to be like all wrapped in on itself because it is in a smaller part of the park. It has some water features that you go over and stuff, and it is the one of the taller rides in the park itself. So you get up pretty high and you get a pretty good view. And like I said, the ejector airtime on this ride is absolutely insane. It is definitely a very exhilarating experience, and it is one of my favorite intimate rides. So
Yes. I think if we did an intimate episode and we didn't talk about a specific roller coaster, we'd be doing a disservice to Intamin. And I'm gonna bring it up here because I think it's one of my favorites. I removed it from my top 15 because it no
oh,
longer is standing.
this is not one that I thought you were talking about. Anyways, go ahead.
We're gonna talk about King Ka, the king of roller
Yes. Okay.
coasters.
Yeah. You know
No,
what
so I
this will
took it out of
be?
my top 15 because it technically doesn't exist anymore.
Yeah, I
They
was gonna
tore it down.
say
It's gone. Like,
this will be a good spot to kind of play homage to that ride because it was the tallest and the fastest when it was built, and then it remained the tallest. There is, as far as I know, nothing currently taller being built than that. Oh no, because there's the one. Is the one over in Saudi Arabia? Did that thing actually open?
no, it is
Okay, so
built. I don't know if it's even tested yet,
oh
but it
damn.
is
Okay.
built. It is
Okay.
finished, from what I
Okay.
know. From what I
Okay.
understand, it is finished. Um, that being said, we gotta talk about the King
Yes.
because this was one of my favorite Intamins for a long time. Like I said, I took it out of my top 15 because my top 15 is existing roller coasters only.
Oh, okay.
Unfortunately, that being said, if I had a top 15 defunct roller coasters, this would be number
Boof.
one in my
Yeah.
opinion. So Kane Ka operated from 2005 to 2024, as we all know.
Yeah.
Stood at a top height of 456 feet tall and reached a top speed of 128 miles per hour. And it was a hydraulic launch. And that's kind of why I wanted to talk about at least one of these roller coasters
Oh yeah.
is Intamin invented the hydraulic launch and was one of the most extreme launches that you could purchase.
On the planet.
The King, yes, the King to Ka launch was 128 miles per hour in 3.5 seconds. To put that into perspective, you're talking about like drag racing car
Yeah.
like speeds, like like yeah, that's insane. But yeah, King Ka was just an absolute animal when we were able to get on it. It was a little rough, especially at the end of its lifetime when we rode it in 2023, 22. Was it 21?
No, I don't think so. Because I graduated from college in 2021. So no.
So 2022?
Because
2023?
we rode King Dakar when I was during my main contract, right?
Yes, you were in Maine
It would
for
have
that.
been 2023.
It would have been 2023.
Yeah,
So yeah,
because go ahead.
it was a little bit rough when we rode it, but I absolutely love this roller coaster. It is one of my favorite memories to ride this thing. We were able to ride it multiple times. We had a really great day that day at Six Flags Great Adventure. That being said, it really sucks that they took it out.
Okay,
I'm sad now.
just pause for a second. what happened was, as I was working a contract in the state of Maine. So this kind of opened up a different couple parks we could have gone to because I could drive there, Gabe could fly into a major city, and then we could go to the roller coaster park. So we were actually planning on going to Hershey Park because it was a huge park and had
Oh
a
yeah,
ton of
that's right.
coasters. Yes, and then what happened was is literally the year before me and Gabe did this trip, El Toro had a derailment and we didn't know if it was going to be open. So Gabe's like, I don't want to go there. And then, of course, Kingda Ka just had known reliability issues. But what happened was Gabe saw that El Toro
Well,
was going to
King
be
Ka was
open.
down too.
Yeah, that's what
No,
I'm
no,
saying.
no.
Is
So, because King Ka was down because the launch cable that launches the train had broken. So,
oh,
yeah.
it was
So
actually
basic.
down.
Yeah, yes. So King Ka was down. El Toro was down, and I was like, well, I really want to go to Six Flags Great Adventure. Those two coasters aren't going to be open, so let's go to
It's a
Hershey
whole
Park. It was for my
exactly.
birthday. It was
Yeah,
a birthday trip that we were taking, and so we were like, you had the hotel booked and
I did.
everything,
I did.
and we were going to Hershey Park, and then I don't remember. I think I saw something. I don't know where I saw it. I saw
Yeah.
somewhere that King Ka was going to reopen because they finally fixed it.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, that's kind of neat. And then I saw El Toro was going to be reopening because they also fixed that coaster. And I was like, okay, hold on. We actually have to go.
We have to
Like,
pause and go and ride it before they close these rides down. And thank goodness that we did, because otherwise, at this point, we wouldn't be riding Kingda Ka. We would have never ridden it.
no, no. It was one of those things where I was like, even in the back of my head, I'm like, I don't know how much longer either of these coasters are going to be around. Obviously, Top Thrill at that point had already closed.
Yep.
So, like, I was like, man, I don't know. And then I saw that they're both going to be open at the same time. I'm like, all right,
Oh,
bet we're going to ride this thing.
sold right there. And of course, he was somewhat gracious to me. And he's like, Sam, I know you booked that hotel already, but we really need to change our plans. I'm like, don't worry about it. I can probably get refunded, even if there's a cancellation fee. I don't care. Let's go.
Yeah.
It was your birthday anyways. And then, like I just said, if we had not gone then, I mean, we probably would have tried to get there in the past couple of years, but we possibly could never have ridden Kingda Ka if we did not go at that point in time. So it really
Yeah, I
is.
know. That's kind of crazy to think about, actually.
Yeah, it really is. So
It's almost like I knew but didn't know. You know what I mean?
yeah,
Like,
yeah. Something in the
yeah.
universe was telling you that you had to go. So you're like, all
I
right,
know.
we're gonna go. So
So I'm glad we were able to ride it. I feel bad for people who were not able to ride it. I
mhm.
just revisiting that whole situation again, now that we're already here, that really sucked the way they did that and just decided to close the ride down
Oh my
completely
gosh.
without telling anybody. That was
Yeah,
kind of like, that was rude. But
it really was. This
Six
all
Flags Great
occurred
America, or Great America, Six Flags Great Adventure, do better.
exactly. This happened all after the merger, right?
Yes, this was all post-merger stuff.
Okay.
That being said, we got about 10 minutes left. Is there one more roller coaster we need to talk about, or what do we
I
want to
feel
do
like this is
here?
a personal favorite of mine and yours, and we both think it's the best ride at Cedar Point. So I feel like we would be remiss not to at least mention Maverick.
I think you're right. I'm looking it up right now. So Maverick. So now Maverick is an interesting roller coaster, right?
Yes.
Because
Yes, it
and I
is.
can actually talk a lot about this thing. So
He
it
loves
opened
this
in
ride.
2007. We get it. Anyway, I do love it.
Yeah.
Anyway, it opened in 2007. It has a top height of 105 feet and a top speed of 70 miles per hour. Now, the reason why this coaster is so interesting is because this is one of the first coasters that came out of Intamin post Coaster Wars. Obviously,
Oh.
the namesake of our podcast, Coaster Wars,
Yes.
was a real thing in the 90s and the early 2000s. And the Coaster Wars was basically, how big and tall can we build a roller coaster? Obviously, they figured that out. It was the 420 foot tall Top Thrill and the
Yep.
456 foot tall Kingda Ka with a top speed of around 120 miles, give or take, depending on what coaster you're going to ride. But that was kind of where they figured out, holy cow, this is a lot of money, and these two coasters are very unreliable.
Mm,
This is where Parks really decided, let's step back and try something else instead of trying to
yes.
build the biggest, baddest, longest roller coaster ever. And Maverick kind of spawned out of that because, like I said, it's only 100 feet tall. So it's
Yeah.
like as Cedar Point, obviously you did the 200-foot tall Magnum XL, then you did the 300-foot tall Millennium Forest, then you do the 400-foot tall Top Thrill Dragster. What do you do next? Like, how do you top those, right?
Yep.
And that's why Maverick is such an interesting thing, because it was one of the first coasters they took and went, well, do we really have to build this thing? Like, because obviously the next number would have been 500 feet, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So we have to build a 500-foot tall coaster. And they're like, no, let's try something different. And that's where Maverick comes out of this, and where they get the two different you have the two different versions that it has. You
Mm-hmm.
have the launched lift hill, which gives really, really good airtime at a 100-foot tall
Oh
lift
yeah.
hill. You have the two overbanks curves, and then you have the 70 mile per hour LSM launch
Mm-hmm.
underneath the station. And you get a roller coaster experience that's not the biggest, tallest, baddest, but in my opinion is still to this day the best roller coaster at Cedar Point, which is really interesting to me.
Yes. I totally agree with you. And it is something to be said where instead of just breaking records, roller coaster companies and even roller coaster parks started to become more into, okay, instead of just breaking records, how can we give a better overall roller coaster experience? How can we make something that is weird inversions and gives some good forces and a good mixture of forces, and even getting into the theming side of things with me. I know Maverick doesn't have a lot of that, but a lot of coasters that are being built nowadays have way more theming than some of the older ones that we have. Like Millennium Force is basically just the station and the fact that it was um the first one to break 300 feet. So, and not to say that Millennium Force is a bad roller coaster. I'm just saying theming has become a lot more, and even Maverick a little bit with
Yes.
its theming, because it was like it has its own little story. And then when they eventually built Steel Vengeance, that was like incorporated into the story. So roller coasters have getting a little bit more of a personality too. And so I think that's really interesting. And like Gabe said, Maverick was kind of the kickoff of this. And then talking about that drop and it only being 100 feet, I think a lot of the times with traditional roller coaster drops, you don't start to feel it until you're halfway down the drop. So when you have something that literally pushes you over that drop, you're already at least halfway to your top speed by the time you're like at the top of your lift hill. So it's something to be said about what Maverick really does as an overall roller coaster experience.
Yeah, Maverick kind of reframed the thinking of roller coasters, because
Yes.
before it was height and speed. How
Mhm.
fast and how tall can we make this? Where Maverick transitioned into, how do we make really, really good elements? So like,
Yes.
or transitions. It was a lot more transition focused, element focused roller coaster than a just how big and tall and fast can we make this thing. And it focused more on the rider experience. Like you were saying, how do we create a full ride experience from the moment you step into the queue line to the
Mhm.
moment you exit the station and everything and head back out to the main walking path area.
Oh,
So it was like,
absolutely.
and that's where I really fell in love with Maverick. To me, Maverick is still the best ride at Cedar Point, which is, well, we don't know because there's Top Thrill 2 that we
Oh,
have to
I
ride,
suppose. I
and there's the
suppose.
new Vekoma coaster they're debuting at Cedar Point as well. We
Mhm.
didn't ride the Wild Mouse ride either yet, but I don't really think that's the best coaster there. I'm going to
Me
be
neither.
honest with you. Maybe the best family coaster there.
Yeah.
Anyway, that being said, I just really appreciate Maverick for kind of taking the roller coaster industry and turning it on its head a little bit. Which, I mean, they had to. They had no choice at that point. Like,
Oh,
obviously, King
like
Cow was the pinnacle at that
yeah.
time.
Yes.
So it's like, And that's why I really fell in love with Maverick. It's just kind of the history where it sits on the roller coaster timeline. And the fact that we basically got New Age Intamin before we got New Age. I mean, Maverick is a lot closer to Velocicoaster than it
Yes.
is the Top Thrill. It
Yes.
really is.
Hmm.
And that's what I really love about this coaster is it was kind of Intamin showing what they were capable of doing once a park came to them and said, it doesn't have to be 400 feet tall. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying?
Yes.
So,
I agree. On that note, I feel like that is really kind of a great way to end this Coasters 101 episode on the company that Intimate was, the kind of yes man of the roller coaster world, and their start into the world, the records that they broke, their kind of tumultuous middle section where they were kind of banned from the US, and how they're slowly coming back, which is really fun to see because of the type of innovators that they are. But getting into our future episodes, so we had to switch up our schedule here because me and Gabe are taking a very kind of surprise roller coaster trip here.
yes, we have our custom layout arrows episode, which is just hilarious to me that we went from Intamin to Arrow.
Arrows,
We
yeah.
went backwards by a lot.
Yes, by a lot is great.
We went from cutting edge design and innovation to how do we build a roller coaster with no computer design and
How do we create the
no
first
innovation.
inversion?
Yeah. So that's just kind of a funny little thing. After that, though, we are going to Six Flags Great America, and we are going back to Mount Olympus. It has been a while.
It has
I
been
haven't
a
been to Mount
hot
Olympus.
second. Oh my gosh.
I haven't been to Mount Olympus in at least 6 years.
Well, yeah, I've been down to the Dells, but we always go in summertime, and we always go to Noah's Ark because Noah's
I
Ark
know.
water park is technically better than Mount Olympus is, but Mount Olympus has our coasters, so it
Yes.
has. And I don't even know. I'd have to sit down and actually look about the last time I went to Mount Olympus. It's been
I know.
a
It's
while.
been a while. Anyway, we're going to drive around some go-karts, cause some accidents, and hopefully get back on Hades 360 for the first time in a long time.
I bet
and then we are going back.
I bet it's so rough. I bet it's so rough.
I am excited, but also not excited.
Yeah. I'm excited, but slightly terrified.
That being said, we're also going back to Six Flags Great America. Now, we thought the new roller coaster was going to be open. Now it sounds like it's not going to be open. I don't know. Anyway, this will be good for you because you'll get some re-rides on stuff. I haven't been to Six Flags Great America since last year, so then we get on it for the first time this year. Raging Bull, Goliath, X-Flight, American Eagle. Oh, I can't wait for an American Eagle.
Yes.
That's going to be so good.
It is going to be so good because they finally have done with all their repairs and stuff, right?
I have no idea. So the last time I was there, which was last summer, I showed up and they were running both sides, but they were not able to dispatch both trains at the same time anymore.
Mm-hmm.
So like they would dispatch one, it would go through the layout, then they would dispatch the other side.
Okay.
So that being said, I really have no idea where it's at.
We'll hopefully get a ride on it.
That's all I know.
Yeah, we'll get a ride on it. Unfortunately, a lot of racing coasters have experienced issues with the racing part of it, so I don't know that American Eagle would ever technically be a racing coaster again. But still, it's so much fun to ride, even besides that. So, like Gabe said, well, it'll be a really good chance to get all of re-rides on a ton of coasters. It'll be a nice dip back into coasters because my gosh,
it's been so long.
Yeah, exactly.
It's been too long.
It really has. So, and then on top of that, this is just a little side note for everybody out there. Me and Gabe bought the season passes and then added on the all parks passport. But just a small note, you have to go to your quote unquote home park that you bought your season pass for, even if you have the all parks passport, to activate your season pass, which I have not done, and that is also one of the reasons that we're going there, so I can activate my stinking season pass.
Yeah, that was kind of my fault. I should have kind of.
It's really not your fault.
I didn't know until
exactly.
Yeah, I know.
I think
I didn't know you had to actually go to your home park to activate it. I figured it didn't matter what park you went to. I don't know.
Yeah, I feel like if you add it on the All Parks passport, one of two things should be available to you. You should either be able to activate it at any park, or they should set up an online system so you can activate it online. And I know that might be difficult, but it would, you know what? A lot of more people would probably buy the freaking season pass if they could. So that's just my little
Well,
note.
you do gotta realize though, not everybody is in the situation you are in.
That's a very good point. I'm a
You know what I'm saying?
socialist.
Like most
Yeah.
people who buy a season pass to a specific park live close to that specific park.
I'm just complaining about
Just
my situation.
yeah, I know it was still frustrating. I understand. I'm just
Yeah.
saying. So
But with that, everybody, thank you so much for listening, and join us next week for our custom layout arrows episode.
and I hope you all have a great day.